Day. We're joined by Captain Edward Boyo, who is the Managing Director of Overland Airways. Morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, looking at all of this, I mean, there were those who actually saw this coming, and then because they've had all kinds of commentary before this was done. But let's start with the aviation, which is where you function. How has that sector been functioning? I mean, is there going to be any major fundamental change? Will the removal of the minister affect things in that sector? What do you think?
The removal of a minister should not affect things in any sector at all. The ministerial system answers to the president, and it's a continuum. So anyone that accepts the job of a minister knows that at some point they will have to exit, and the journey continues in that corridor with the next person. And you must understand something, that governments work by policies. Government works by manifestos. So if you have a minister in place, you must de-emphasize the vision or your vision on that minister. You must look at the government. What has the government done? You could be Minister of Aviation. Any one of you could be.
Yeah, but the thing is, it is the minister that drives the policy of government in that sector. And you know how it plays out here in most cases, where a new person is at the helm of affairs, and then you don't see those policies being continued because they don't focus on it, they don't really talk about it, they just seem as though they come up with something new.
Now, don't see how it operates here. You are in the new generation, the younger generation. We've just got to adhere to international standards. We've got to move this country forward. Understand something. There's a master plan. There's a transformation agenda. We're obliged to follow it. So if you become minister today, you are obliged to come into that seat and say, where did my predecessor stop on this plan? We cannot do things haphazardly. We should not do things in personal manners. It's a system. In a ministry, there's a permanent secretary, there are directors, there are parastatals. It must function with the international order.
No doubt about that. But what have we seen over the years? We've seen them come in and done something differently. But let's even talk about that. So give us your assessment of how that sector has been running.
That sector has been evolving. It has been running pretty well. You must understand that aviation is not a localized affair, and how it translates to the populace is air transport. But behind that, there is the International Civil Aviation Organization that guides the implementation and practice of the aviation industry. And they have 8 elements to guide this practice. The national legislation, the operating regulations, which is popularly called the NCAR, the agency that will implement or safety oversight, which you generally call the CAA in the country, the capacity to have trained personnel that will implement that agency, the availability of documentation and guidance materials and procedures so that it is standardized. Now, these 5 elements have to be established by any state. It's universal, it's not limited to Nigeria. And in addition to that, the states need to implement 3 more elements. There must be a licensing regime. Beyond licensing, there must be a strong inspection and surveillance regime. And the states have to demonstrate a capacity for resolution, for defects, deviations, etc. So it's not about punishing the populace or punishing the countries. When there is a deficiency, the states should only demonstrate the capacity to resolve it. Now, with the International Civil Aviation organization, guided by the Chicago Convention when all nations came together, I said, let us organize this thing. Aviation practice, which translates to the populace as air transport, is regulated. It's not about one minister or another. Any minister that comes in will follow those procedures.
But it would seem that, to a host of Nigerians, never has the master plan been so followed, visibly followed, more than in recent times.
I agree with you, because the last minister was very vocal and very visible with her programs. And you must also agree that the transformation agenda of Mr. President was very clear. It was a campaign element, and it was highly propagated, even by Channels TV.
Oh yes, I was just wondering, why is it that, it has not been, so if you say that there is a master plan, I was just wondering if all the operators in that particular sector have been carried along in the master plan, and if you're aware of the components of that particular transformation agenda, in quote.
Well, you must realize that we're adults. There is nothing like carrying somebody along. You carry children along. If you're a player in a sector, you must find the information and apply it to life. You have a responsibility to yourself.
Well, that's what they call leadership, and of course there's followership in that area.
Exactly. Leadership and followership are two different things. They are complementary and they can be antagonistic. So leadership looks at cause. Leadership is interested in cause. Followership is interested in effect. So when you say a leader has a vision, the followers do not necessarily see that vision, but the leader knows where he's going.
Did you see the vision? As people who are operators in that particular sector, did you see the vision of the policy of this particular transformation agenda?
The vision is clear: to make life better for Nigerians, to use air transport as a means of a tool for economic development. And it's happening. It's happening all over. Look at the massive airport reconstruction. You must recognize when this administration came in, we were established on ICAO Category 1. That means our national legislation and the regulatory part of our aviation industry was stabilized. So you have to move to the next level. You either move to the airlines, or you move to the airport, or you move to the airspace, or you move into the invisible part of the aviation industry, the metrology, the accident investigation, training, and things like that.
So you would say that this is all a part of this general aviation master plan, of which the transformation agenda is just a component. Is that what you're saying?
No. It is an implementation of a master plan. And there are phases, and it will be sequenced.
Who came up with the master plan?
It's been there before. It's been there for about 10, 15 years. But it is constantly being refreshed. We cannot rely on civil aviation regulations of 1963 in 2014. You must understand that. But you see, patience is important. Contribution is important. We must not all be castigating, criticizing. We have to contribute.
As operators in that particular sector, what have you contributed to it? Because, one of the accusations is that operators are always looking to cut corners, and oftentimes when safety is concerned, because they also have their own constraints, they are always looking for ways to see how they can manage, and oftentimes it will seem that they are the headaches of that particular sector.
No, you must be very careful. You see, as a media entity, you must be very, very careful not to create the wrong impression. Operators are not cutting corners.
That is not my impression. That is the impression that is out there. I'm simply telling you what people think.
I appreciate that, but we must propagate the correct impression. Operators do not cut corners. It's not. Listen, the law of gravity is a law of gravity. If it goes up, if there's not enough power to hold it there, it must drop. And operators appreciate this. But to say that operators are not contributing, you must look at the environment in which they are operating. The Nigerian operating environment is harsh. But over the past few years, government has made efforts to improve that operating environment, up to the extent of revoking licenses of airlines that are not meeting up to standard. What more do you expect?
The question is, how are operators contributing? Because you were saying that we shouldn't all just be criticizing and criticizing. We should all contribute our quota. So I asked the question, how are operators contributing to the sector?
Operators are contributing to the sector by availing their resources to the Nigerian public.
Really? I thought they were doing business there.
No,
They are availing their resources.
No. It is not just about business.
Okay, well,
You must look at it from when an entrepreneur sets out in any industry. There's a profit motive, all right, but he or she is also providing a service. You contribute to the economy. They're creating jobs. They're doing a lot of things. Operators join with the authorities, the civil aviation authorities, the service providers, to implement the ICAO program for transportation across the world. So you cannot say they are not contributing. They are not the regulators. You see, the thing about air transport is that you also have a duty of self-regulation. But for the general public to just hold the impression that operators are not safe, no, it's not correct. It's not